Welcome to a series all about garment knitting. Now this is a skill I really want to master. I love knitting garments and I love the look of Yoke sweaters, so I think it's time I knit one. Over the next 12 episodes, I want to go from Padawan to Jedi Master. So join me as we journey to the centre of the yoke. Oh yes, I'm back for episode 7 of Journey to the Centre of the Yoke. And do you know what? For the first time in this whole process, I actually feel like, with regards to colour work, I might just be getting there. Now, if you saw the last Bryonybear show, I had finished this lovely Mon Ami hat, and this, as again I'm sure you'll remember, it's my third one. And we hadn't blocked it at the time, so as Kate tells me, as I'm sure so many of you will know, but I certainly didn't know, colour work, really, you need to block it. That's when you'll then know, is your gauge somewhere close to being good, or is it not? Well look, it looks really good. Now granted, it's thick yarn. But as you know, those of you who followed me every step of this process so far, you'll know that the idea has always been to nail it on thicker yarn and then drop down, so that by the time, and it's getting close now, and we'll see in just a moment, by the time I get to the yoke of the Sawyer jumper, I might have a chance of actually doing it justice. But yeah, I'm really pleased with that, because it looks sort of flat, unlike the other ones, which, you know, whilst you could see the design, looked sort of ruffled. I think that colour work is addictive. It's also frustrating, but all the best things I think are addictive and frustrating, because if they weren't frustrating, I would argue quite strongly that they wouldn't be addictive, because it's the frustrating elements of them which makes you want to do it more, so you get better at it. Certainly that's how I work, and I think everyone, if we're honest, our brains, certainly my mum tells me, her 78 this year. A 78-year-old brain seems to be becoming more in need of new exciting things now than it was 10 years ago. So yeah, I think our brains are always keen for a little bit of a challenge. And this has been a challenge for me, as you know. But these little victories then give you the confidence to take the sort of next step, don't they? And that's half the battle. It's half the battle with anything. You know, I've said this before, and I say it to people all the time. They talk to me about the whole running thing. I've just realised I've made a mistake. Would you believe it? Oh, what a complete idiot. Pride, as we established in the Bryonybears on Friday last week, comes before a fall, or the week before, whatever it was. I've accidentally done an additional round. I got excited. I was so happy with my gauge, I thought I would extend the colour work by 1 row. Do you see? 2 rows there, I've done 3 rows on the top. We won't say anything, say nothing, act casual. It's completely thrown me, that has. I can't believe it. But yes, it's been perfect for me. You know, taking a pattern with not a particularly challenging chart, but challenging enough to get me to the stage now where I'm putting this down and I've dropped down to the same weight I'm knitting the Sawyer in. The pattern I'm knitting is this one. It's called, it's a bit of a mouthful, this hat name, To the Top Hat. To the Top Hat. I don't know how to intonate it. to the top hat. Do you know what I mean? How do you say that? To the top hat. Do you know, I don't know why I'm struggling with that. I'm going to need to look at the front page. To the top hat. I think it's because, well, I'll tell you who it's by. It's by Gabrielle Vizina, and it is knit in the same weight yarn as what I'm knitting the Solia. So now is the moment when things start to get really interesting, because now I'm going to have to start doing the colour work with, you know, a little bit thinner yarn, and that's going to really put me to the test now. And also as well, there's 3 colours, although there isn't really 3 colours, because the third colour actually just comes at the top of the hat, to the top hat. Now I feel like I'm getting it now. I think it's because I always struggle, you know, with a pattern when what the pattern is in the title. I don't know why I struggle with those. Silly, really. Samantha, Solia, nailed it. But then you've got Hermione's Everyday Socks. That is just right, it seems to flow. To the top, that works. But to the top hat, just seems weird. It's a lovely pattern though. It looks really, really nice. I mean, you can absolutely see it there. You know, there's lots of interesting colour work going on. And it's you know, quite varied, which is really fun. And there's a lot of stitches on the needles. I've cast on. I'm knitting it for Kay, and she picked the colours. She wanted a Christmassy hat, because I'll probably have it done by that Christmas, or maybe I'll have it done before, but look at these colours. Oh yes. Aren't they festive? The main colour, Kay chose, the main colour is red. The contrast colour for the main body of the hat is this sort of creamy white. And then at the top of the hat, the top bit, it's going to be green. Festive, I think you'll agree. And I'm already going off-piste with regards to the pattern, because the pattern is a 1x1 rib, and I've only just cast it on and got going. But I'm doing twisted rib. Now, twisted rib, I've got to say, it's just the business. I know I've said this before, but it was a long time ago, and it feels like a little while since I've done a good portion of twisted rib. There's just nothing better. It's so neat and crisp and clean and lovely. I adore it, and that's why I love the gloves that Kay did me so much. I've got to say, I don't think she particularly enjoyed knitting quite a long cuff of twisted rib. It is a challenge, isn't it? And I don't know why it's so much more of a challenge, because you're still putting your yarn in the same places, aren't you? Forwards, back, but just knitting into that back stitch seems to me, I don't know if you find it more of a challenge, but it really does. It's my left hand. Why would it be my left hand that it seems to work out more? But that's where I seem to just get a little bit of an ache. I love it though. It's worth the effort, most definitely. And I'm really enjoying it. It's the first time I've ever knit a hat in yarn this way. And look, I just need to put it out there immediately that I sincerely apologise for my total cluelessness when it comes to yarn weights. I've got no idea what yarn weight that is. All I know is you know, I'm even looking at the pattern, but you know, those of you who know me well will know. Do you know what? I don't know why it just doesn't go in yarn weights. Come on, it's got to say here somewhere. Superwash merino wool. See, it's not DK. It's not DK. It's thinner than DK, isn't it? Or maybe it is DK. Oh, look, I'm totally lost. You're not here for yarn weights. If you want expertise on yarn weights and needles and all those things, you need to go see Mrs. Jones on her tutorials. We're here for a journey into colour work garment knitting. So enough hats, enough talk about that. Although I've got to say, I'm really, really enjoying that. And when I look at the pattern, it looks really good. I can't see, you know, there's a nice looking chart, and I can't see anything in here that doesn't look clear and straight, and you know, I don't think I'm going to have a problem at all with that. We did look at 1 or 2 different hats, And we looked at a Tin Can Knits one, and the finished product looks brilliant, but it's one of those Tin Can Knits ones where there's loads of different choices within the pattern, so there's loads of different charts, and you know, you can sort of mix and match. And whilst that idea is really good, I don't know about you, but when I'm knitting, I just want to get a pattern and start it and finish it, and I don't want to have to, I want to apply brain power to the art of knitting, not to the art of deciphering the pattern. And you know, I totally get what Tin Can Knits do with an awful lot of their patterns. They try and give you loads of value, and that's superb. But it was just so complicated, picking out the chart and then marrying it up to the decreases, and then you had to sort of like pick sections from like 3 different areas of the pattern, and that would just confuse me. So I just said, okay, look, I can't do that one. So she found me to their top hat, and away I go. But we've spoken enough about hats. We need to see garment progress. Do you know what? I finally feel like I've got it. Look, it's a completed sleeve. Oh my goodness. And last time, if you recall, I was down here. I've made so much progress. Because, do you know what? I don't get the sleeve island thing. I've knit now, I've only knit 2 sleeves, 2.5 sleeves. No! It's more than that, because as you'll see, I've knit a little bit of that sleeve, and I'm getting down the other sleeve on the Samantha. At no point have I thought, oh, this is taking a long time. It feels exciting because you're decreasing, or in this case, you're in. What am I doing in this case? I'm increasing. On the Samantha I'm decreasing, on this I'm increasing, because of course this is bottom up. But last time I saw you, I was down here. And I was saying to you I had no idea what was going to happen next because I'd done the amount of repeats. Well, what I had done differently to the solid pattern, if you look on the solid pattern on Ravelry, you'll see that an awful lot of people have commented about the size of the sleeves and said it's very large. So, because I knit this sleeve so many times, because I was trying to get the flowers to work, you can go back in this series if you're uncertain of what I'm talking about, because I've covered it in previous episodes of Journey to the Centre of the Yoke. Because I was trying to get those flowers to work, I had 3 goes until I eventually got the technique which enabled me to knit even flowers all the way around, which I'm so happy with this. You know, this is the side where, you know, you can see that there's more space. And there's more space because you're increasing, and until you've got a complete 10 stitches you can't add another one of the flowers. Now I developed this technique which I subsequently forgot when I started the next sleeve, but then I remembered it again. But that technique has enabled me to keep those flowers, and the only point where it got a little bit tricky was here, where we've ended up with one flower on top of another. But I think it looks fine. I just think it looks like maybe an oak leaf or something. So that one is completed, and we've measured it up against Kay's arm. And the reason why I thought, I was like, last episode I was like saying, I've done the repeats that the pattern says and I don't know, you know, what's going to happen next. Well, we decided to avoid having a really ploofy sleeve, and Kay actually likes wide sleeves, but this is perfectly wide, and I actually have knit it on a smaller needle than what the pattern said. Basically, you cast on with one size needles, and then you're supposed to change sizes. You're supposed to go up a little bit. Well, I haven't. I've just kept it on a small size needle, and we've ended up with a perfectly sized sleeve. So, super happy with that. All finished on the top and onto waist yarn. So we have one sleeve. As you will have seen before, but I'm going to show you again because I'm feeling very proud of myself now that, so lovely. See, no, I knit that on the right size, so length should be fine, but you see it gets me panicking now. But I went up a needle size on this, so this will have a slightly wider gauge, and actually if you put this on me, that's right, because it should be just below the chest size, so it looks okay. It looks like it even fit me, as I say. But now, drum roll please, because look, the second sleeve, it's cast on. And yes, I did totally forget the technique. So I cast this on. gotta say, corrugated ribbon, my goodness. It really is a challenge, but it's fun. I mean, you know, it's hard work. And I hope, I mean, it's nice that all the different things have all got the corrugated ribbon at the bottom, so that's all really nice, but I'm not certain if it would still be fine if it didn't have that on. I don't know. But, you know, it's good to do, isn't it? You know, it keeps you challenged, and, you know, it pushes all those sort of double knitting buttons that I really, really enjoy, so, you know, I'm not complaining. It's just, you know, on DPNs and, you know, when you're increasing and all sorts, it really is knitting on the edge. But I did it, and I'm now into the pattern again. And yeah, what I forgot was, with those additional stitches, as I'm increasing, because you knit up just straight, you increase one stitch here up to 50 stitches, then you knit up straight, and then after you've done one flower you increase again, so then you're up to 52 stitches. And what you do then with those additional 2 stitches is between those 2 markers, I just add 1 stitch either end, dependent on where the flower is. If the flower is in the middle, it's 1 stitch either end. If the flower is either side, then you add them to the middle. Well, I forgot that I was adding them to the middle, and I totally knit through and messed it up. But the new Superdan now is capable of thinking back and sorting out the problem, which is exactly what I did. Although, what did I do? I wasn't sure how to unpick it, and Kay showed me. It's really funny. I was like, oh no, disaster, disaster. I've done 1 stitch wrong. He's like, what do you mean? What's the problem with that? I said, oh, it's an SSK, and I don't know how to unpick it, and it's like the easiest thing ever. But it's things like that though, actually. I mean, I just wonder if it's worth, because if you know how to do it, it's fine, but if you don't know how to do it, it's not fine. So I think we should do a little tutorial on unpicking SSKs and unpicking knit 2 togethers. I know it's simple, but those are the types of things, with some of those essential techniques, were often driven by me. And, you know, if I'm like partway through something, it's those little things, isn't it, which the roadblock that you hit, which you need a quick resolution to. And, you know, the idea with our essential knitting techniques, the little series with the decreases and the increases, is you're in the middle of something, and, you know, you suddenly need to be reminded or learn how to do, you know, a particular technique which so many people would think is the simplest thing ever. Well, you can just go straight there and tap on it, and I could do with that. SSK. I mean, the other thing as well is, although we've done tutorials on that, on make one left and make one right, but I'm now feeling much more confident with those, actually. Make one lefts and make one rights. It's those types of things which I have always sort of aspired to not need to look up when I hit them. And I think because so much of my early knitting, and also with sock knitting, you know, there's lots of techniques that you're doing, but you don't really ever hit those types of things. Those make one lefts, make one rights, SSK. I mean, you obviously would be if you were knitting lace, but it's only really been since starting to do garments. Well, it is, isn't it? Because sleeves and you know, decreasing for sizing and all those different things. It was the Irish coffee. That was the first time I'd ever regularly had to do those types of things. And I really enjoy that type of shaping. Do you know what I mean? I think it's really fun to look at someone's body shape, because that's when you're separating. Anyone can go into a shop and buy a jumper, can't they? It's the same with socks though. You know, it is the same as socks, and that's why hand-knit socks are so great. But you're taking it to the next level, aren't you? When you go, right, okay, I'm going to knit a jumper, and I'm going to size it and shape it specifically to the body shape and size of the person I'm knitting it for. And so the enjoyment of wearing a knitted jumper should be equal to, and I'm sure it is equal to, well, it is, because I love my tank top, and I'm going to love my new tank top. Oh yes, it's equal to, if not better than, because it's covering your whole body, you know, a garment. And I've been thinking a lot about garment knitting in general recently. And what I've been thinking about is my frustration and my sort of upset a few weeks ago with regards to the Samantha and the issues I was having with the shoulder. And the conclusion I've come to on reflection is, when you're knitting a hat or socks or anything smaller, you know, anything that doesn't take, if it takes a skein of yarn or two, it doesn't feel quite so dramatic when a problem arises as, say, when you're, you know, you've knit the body of a jumper and a sleeve of a jumper, and then you hit a problem, you know, on another sleeve. You've put so much work in, and there's so much yarn gone in, and so many hours gone in, that it feels worse. It feels like more of a disaster. Well, actually it isn't, is it? It's just the same. The challenges that you face knitting a pair of socks, they are just the same as the challenges that you face knitting a garment. You've just scaled things up a little bit. And just because I've scaled things up a little bit, I shouldn't get frustrated when I encounter those problems, because I am going to encounter those problems, aren't I? And it's all about accepting the problem, working it through, making the finished object look as good as it can do, but then learning from that process and trying not to make the same mistake again. And I really believe that I won't make that absolutely cataclysmic, stupid error of not really understanding what a wrap and turn is doing. Because that's the crux of the reason why on the Samantha I got that shaping wrong. Now, what I have no idea about, and you know, I've said this all along, and I'm actually really glad that we've done it this way, and I actually think that this is the right way to approach things like this, these bigger projects. Don't look too far down the road, because what I'm about to say is I've got no idea about the shaping for the top of the solia, because it's obviously completely different, because it's bottom up. And you know, if I did sort of allow myself to start thinking about it, I'd probably start to panic a little bit and think, oh no, you know, what's going to happen? Well, if there's one thing that we've learned in my health journey, is when you've got something challenging to tackle, if you look 5 steps down the road, you're creating unnecessary worry. If you just focus on the challenge that's directly in front of you, you'll hit it with vigour and positivity, you'll get through it, and then you'll meet the next challenge. And that's the reason why I've honestly approached that solia not looking any further than the next step ahead. Because I think as well what can happen is, with a project that you might think about knitting, you could look at the project and think, that looks great, I want to knit that. You could then buy the pattern, think, great, I'm now going to read through it, see what I need to do, and read something 5 steps in which you've got no idea about, and you then don't knit it. Because you could say that was the issue that I allowed to cloud my judgment with regards to the Tin Can Knits hat pattern, which I considered knitting before I started knitting this one. Perhaps what I should have done is just gone, yes, I like the look of it, and the pattern is structured in a way which I'm not used to, but rather than not attacking that and creating the finished object which I like the look of in the first instance, I put it to one side and moved on. So I've maybe been a victim of my own advice. I think the thing is though, with regards to that and with the colour work, and I think this is right, I need to focus. And I actually said this, didn't I, at the start of this episode when I was talking about that. My brain power needs to be focused on getting the colour work right. Because if I was a good colour work knitter, that's maybe the moment to go back and knit that Tin Can Knits hat. But at this stage, I need something where I don't need to think about the pattern, where I'm just focused on nailing that gauge and producing, something which then is going to give me that additional confidence. So then when I get to the colour work on the solia, I'm going to flow into it and, flow into it with a frame of mind where I feel like I'm going to nail it. And I feel like I'm getting there. In summary, unlike last year's sock project, which I continue to get value from after the event, it felt extremely challenging, that whole thing, the whole Down Lara project. This hasn't felt like that. This has felt challenging, as I've, spoken about so many times, with, getting the sleeves right on the solia, with, getting the gauge right on the hats, but challenging in a more positive way. And that's why I know I'm not a sock knitter. It's really made me laugh, actually, because I obviously cast on the Jemima socks, and so many people have been saying, oh, once a sock knitter, always a sock knitter. No! I'm knitting those socks because I want to keep one pair of socks on the needles, because I don't want to lose those techniques. The more I think about it, the more I do think that it is important that I don't lose the ability to do those things. But I don't have the desire and the sort of excitement about socks as I do about garments, about potentially knitting gloves, which I'm going to cast on once I have finished. What is it I need to finish? Once I've finished the prairie socks, I'm going to cast on some gloves. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited, really, really excited about garments. Getting more and more excited again about double knitting. No time for double knitting today, because there's been so much going on here, but getting more and more excited again about double knitting. Those are the things which really float my boat. The Jemima socks have gone on quite simply because I just want to make sure that I don't lose. I think the ability to knit with thin yarn on DPNs has a huge effect on me knitting this, me dealing with, I used to say to students of mine when I was a teacher that you push your boundaries so that when you knit, I wasn't talking about knitting, I was talking about being a musician back then. You push your boundaries as a musician so that when you're playing within your comfort zone, you play at a higher level. Another way of thinking of it would be, you buy a car with a massive engine size, not so you can drive fast, but so that that car will drive comfortably at the speed limit. Do you know what I mean? So, the sock knitting, the pushing my boundaries with regards to dealing with thin yarn and small needles and doing things which don't come naturally to me, enables me then to approach all these other elements of what I do, and it feel easier because the yarn is thicker and the needles are bigger. Do you know what I mean? So, it's the end of another episode. And I feel excited about where I'm going to be at the next time I see you. Because when I started knitting the first sleeve, I had huge roadblocks to get over. And as I said earlier on today, I had to knit the bottom of it 3 times. So I'm just blitzing through this now. So I really hope that when I see you next, I've knit another sleeve. That's the plan. And when will I see you next? Well, can you believe it's going to be November? And it will be the 29th of November. So, thank you so much for watching. Get ready for some unbelievably exciting things which are going to be happening this week. Come see us on Friday and you'll see what I mean. And yes, I will see you in a month for more wonderful colourwork garment knitting.